So the next learning target is dashboard. So let me get into that. So for leaders, it's important to be able to see what's going on, and dashboards and understanding metrics can be a good way of doing that. So I started here, again, just over 8 years ago. And when I first started, I was trying to understand what the department was doing. And so I've labeled this chart Assessment Chaos. And what I'm showing in these two graphs here, on the one on the left with the purple bars, it's showing the number of different tools that we were using to assess our students' experience or our department's activities. And so you can see that there's a number of different tools that we were using, from Excel to our enterprise system to SurveyMonkey to a benchmarking tool, focus groups, interviews. So there's a lot of different things that were going on. And then you can see the number of times they were being used. And then you flip over to the chart on the right, and you can see that there was a lot. They were happening at all sorts of different times. Some of them were ongoing, some of them were daily, others were weekly, some were as needed. So there was too many things going on. There was no system to coordinate it. And that's when you get into things like survey fatigue for your audience, for your customers, if you will. So this was not a good situation, but it was good for me to be able to see this so that ultimately we could improve it. Now, it took us a little while. So let me move on to the next slide here. So the first department dashboard that we introduced was actually during the pandemic, when we needed information a lot faster to make decisions. And so this was introduced in April. So the pandemic really hit us in March. And so there's a few things I'm going to highlight on this slide here. So again, you'll see there's target language here. Hopefully you can read that. But we needed to define those targets. And so the A arrow here is pointing to success metric. So it's our attempt to start to define that more specifically so that we could increase the chance that we'd have a common interpretation. And then we got into much more specific numbers. So you may recall that we wanted to have 2,400 students living with us. Well, we didn't quite hit that target, but again, we have a very specific number here that the B is pointing to. And this number was updated every day. So it gave us a chance to compare and contrast. And then if we determined there was a problem, then we could start to drill down into that as we needed to. And again, another important part of the using target approach and those three elements is making sure that accountability is clear. So we have clearly outlined in the C arrow the data owner. So who is to update that information and how frequently. Now, ultimately, in the E arrow is pointing to this, that there's too many metrics. So we're working towards simplifying or making the information more concise for us. And move on to the next slide where I'll show you the next version of this. Okay. So this is, I've labeled this dashboard 1.1. And I'm going to draw your attention to a few things. First, the arrow, the A arrow down at the bottom, you can see, so this is just in Excel. We're using Excel. It was the easiest tool for us to access and customize. And we have a few different tabs that we're using in Excel. And we chose to develop one particular area, our fill the beds part of our activities. And so there's other parts of it, and I'm not going to show you any here today, but we chose to focus on fill the beds in the fall. And really what we decided is we wanted to minimize the number of things that we would focus on. So I'm moving you on to the B arrow, and there's a ribbon at the top. And so these are the metrics that we're most interested in seeing, and we look at these every day. My senior team and I look at these every day. And I'll highlight just a few other things here. The charts at the bottom, so this is what the C arrow is pointing to, allow us in those daily huddles to actually drill down just in some basics, some basic information. If we needed more, then we could set up an action to drill down deeper, but it just gives us a chance to manipulate a bit of the data at a very basic level. Again, I just want to draw your attention to the D and E. So we've got a target set, and we can compare that to the actuals, which is what the E is pointing to. So again, really using that target, the who, what, and when is really important for the system that we have built.